the 5 everyday risk factors that aren't new may be robbing us of more than a decade of our life.
Well, so ladies, if you light up, you smoke, and you skip meals and don't check your numbers by 50, your heart timeline moves up 13 years. And for men, you lose 11 years.
The 5 risk factors by age 50 that could steal a decade of your life. That is today's podcast. So Phil, by 50, supposedly we're at the proverbial fork in the road.
Which way did you go?
I mean, the question is everything written, or do we still have a new chapters to write from that standpoint?
I think we still have new chapters to write.
You and I discussed this because it was a study that just came out at the American College of Cardiology in 2025 that said the 5 everyday risk factors that aren't new may be robbing us of more than a decade of our life.
Hypertension. High cholesterol.
Right.
Diabetes, obesity, and smoking.
Correct. So they're not new. These are the things that have been out there. But this study basically said now how much life they may each steal from us, especially if we have all 5. But today, basically, we're out there to tell them how to add years to your life, really. Right? Well, how can we get it back? How can we get it back?
Well, so ladies, if you light up, you smoke, and you skip meals and don't check your numbers by 50, your heart timeline moves up 13 years. And for men, you lose 11 years. And that's a lot of time to lose when you have the ability to step in and make some real, lifestyle and dietary habits that can add years to your life, literally.
Exactly. I mean, this was 2 million people, 39 countries, and they looked at these 5 villains. And just like you said, another way to look at it is if you have all 5, men have nearly 40% and women nearly 25% higher risk of heart disease.
With all 5?
Versus way lower if they have none. And as you said, you're getting at least 11 to 13 more years free from heart disease and 12 to 15 more years from dying. From anything.
Right, and if you just reduce your blood pressure, you can add 2 years to your life. And there's a lot of other ways too, but before we go into those, we're going to cut to a commercial and we'll be right back. Are you frustrated with diets that overpromise and underdeliver? Are you struggling with food confusion? Hi, my name's Philippa Bevington. I am a registered dietitian and integrative health coach. And I know food because for years, I too struggled with my health until I cracked the food code and created a sustainable nutrition program. And today, I'm sharing those tools with you.
As an integrative and interventional cardiologist for nearly 30 years, I've seen firsthand what poor nutrition does to bad health and diseases in my patients. I'm Dr. Scott, and this is why I'm so excited to partner with Philippa at philknowsfood.com and the 30-day Reboot program. It simplifies nutrition, empowers you to make better choices, and transforms your health.
Whether you're looking to improve your heart health, lose weight, or just feel better in your own skin, Phil's 30-day Reboot and Cracking the Food Code can help you create a sustainable program that works for you.
This isn't just about food on your plate. It's about your overall health and well-being. So let's take the first step in your journey together.
So if you lower your blood pressure, you add 2 years. If you quit smoking, you can add another 2 years. And if you fix all 5, you can add 5 years to it.
5 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good deal.
I mean, in order of importance, and so basically we just have to take all of the 5, and I want to call it the heart risk dashboard. So it's the dashboard of a car, and that's what I want to call it. High blood pressure and smoking are probably the most important duo. Because if you fix blood pressure between the ages of 55 and 60, you get the biggest gain, just as you said, and that's 2 years. And if you do the smoking, that's that's another 2 years, and you're getting 4 years. In specific, the detail is like if you just drop 10 points. We talked about that in our prior show in terms of lowering inflammation, but that's one of the reasons why you add those years to your life. If you just drop 10 points, you drop heart events by 20%.
10 points in your blood pressure?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a big gain.
dying from anything, you drop by 13%. So all-cause mortality or dying from any cause is dropped by 13. So it's 10 points in blood pressure. You go from 90 to 80. That's why it's so big and important.
Right.
Smoking, obviously, it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
I guess the analogy...
Smoking anymore?
People are smoking still. Think of a garden hose, right? You have this garden hose. If you add pressure and pressure and pressure, it can crack the hose. If you fill it up with smoke, it fills up with junk.
Right.
So basically, you don't need a new hose. You got to turn down the pressure and get rid of the smoke. Are there any recommendations, in terms of getting to work on blood pressure lowering from a lifestyle standpoint that you might recommend?
Well, I think we really have to look at the mind diet, right? So we talk a lot about anti-inflammatory diet, but I think we really want to focus a little bit on the mind. And it is very similar to the Mediterranean style or anti-inflammatory eating, but it also heavily focuses on sodium intake. And so let's talk a little bit about some daily targets when you're following the DASH diet. So you really want to try to get 4 to 5 servings of vegetables every single day. A lot of antioxidants, polyphenols, etc. 4 to 5 servings of fruit, 6 to 8 servings of whole grains. So you really want to watch and wipe out the white carbs, right? No white flour, white sugar, all that kind of stuff. 2 or less servings per day of meat, poultry, or fish. I want to be careful here because when you say 2 or less, and we're talking about a protein forward diet, we really want to say we want to do 2 or less of high cholesterol foods, right? We really want to encourage more plant forward, fish, etc. 2 to 3 servings of healthy oils per day, and limit sodium intake to 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams per day, which is about 1 teaspoon.
So it's no longer just a 2-gram sodium diet anymore.
It's not. It's actually less, right? And it's about 1 teaspoon, which is not a lot. So that really means you have to very carefully read labels, stay away from packaged foods. Things that are, already prepackaged are full of sodium and extra sugar and things like that for flavor. Yeah. But predominantly we want to watch our sodium intake for sure.
And it goes without saying that exercise lowers blood pressure.
Always.
So again, in our lifestyle package, we want to move more and we want to eat right.
And you also want to sleep. I mean, sleep is incredibly important. Because
absolutely. Less than 5 hours.
Right. When an individual's not getting enough sleep, it also can affect their blood pressure as well.
Absolutely. And even other factors, sleep apnea.
Sure.
Correcting sleep apnea is going to lower blood pressure. But
that goes hand in hand with obesity too,
it does.
right? With
and
weight
lowering
loss.
weight and will lower sleep apnea. And of course, again, the smoking is such a big contributor. It stiffens the arteries, increases the resistance, and blood pressure goes up. That's why that hose analogy is really good. You can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as I said, folks, look up, as Phil said, the DASH diet is probably the best weapon to lower your salt, your sodium level, and which will lower your blood pressure.
And just eating whole foods, really. Staying away from fast foods, packaged foods, ultra processed foods, which we have a whole podcast on, but because those foods are just laden with sodium.
So let's talk about number 3 and 4 on the dashboard. That's cholesterol and weight, right? Now, they go hand in hand, but what was really interesting in the study was that there's a U-shaped curve, right? So having too low a cholesterol and too low a weight is not healthy either. But we'll focus more on the high cholesterol and the weight.
Said no woman ever.
But the researchers said that they suggested we should follow what they call the Goldilocks zone, right? And they recommended, and again, look at our prior podcast talking about by 30, the advanced markers that you should check, looking at something called ApoB for your cholesterol and CRP, C-reactive protein, for inflammation. Right. Because again, those drive the events. So that's kind of my segue to, all right, again, how is your get to work lifestyle recommendations to lower your weight and your cholesterol going to fit here?
Well, I think we really have to, particularly with cholesterol, really have to heavily focus on fiber. I mean, fiber is the number one, I would say,
not enough fiber. People just
no one's meeting the recommendations, which is 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, which is not that easy to get, by the way. I eat really well, and I still have to take a fiber supplement because it is hard to get that much in. You really want to focus on really whole foods like oats and chia seeds, flax seeds, beans, lentils, apples, artichokes, Brussels sprouts, all those really fun foods that everybody really loves.
I like them all.
But I think fiber, because it does bind cholesterol and takes it out of the body, that's one thing. We also have to really, really be careful with our make sure you're choosing healthy fats because it does matter. You'll see everything all over now on TikTok and everywhere else about no seed oils.
Yeah.
But it is really important that the type of oil, the quality of your food matters. So it's not just watching fat intake and saturated fat, it's the type. So we want to choose very healthy oils, and we also want to decrease the amount of saturated fat in our diet. So anything that's at room temperature or comes from an animal, we really want to limit that as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're trying to live longer, and obviously weight and cholesterol are going to lead to events, not in their own fashion just as much as smoking and hypertension. I mean, that's why these risk factors are stealing decades from people, because the blood pressure is not controlled, they're smoking, their cholesterol is not controlled, and they're overweight.
And you want to, you have to remember that it's not just what you're putting on your plate. You want to remember that exercise and sleep play a huge role in both of these as well. More obesity is, with inflammation than cholesterol per se, but an anti-inflammatory eating. So you want to be very plant forward and making sure you're eating the rainbow, as they say. You're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet.
Now, lastly, we have to talk about on our dashboard diabetes, right? And again, in no particular order, these are will all steal years from your life. And you got to get all of them under control, and that's what you go to all healthcare professionals and dietitians, et cetera, to get these numbers and to where they should be. But their recommendations were the best way to cut into this is to recognize pre-diabetes. We call it metabolic syndrome. And again, that sugar dashboard that we talked about in our prior episode, focusing on lowering the A1C, lowering the insulin, and lowering the fasting sugar. If you do that, you cut your diabetes risk by 60%.
Yeah. But let's tell people what hemoglobin A1C is.
Please.
So that's your fasting, that's your average glucose over 3 months, right? So people come in the office and they'll say, oh, but I didn't fast that morning and I had coffee.
Doesn't matter.
And I'm like, nope, that's not it, because this is a snapshot of 3 months.
Yes.
So it's every 3 months you can get that retested, every 6 months, and see what your dietary lifestyles are doing to those numbers. Are they decreasing, and which direction are you going?
Right. And I tell patients, when you look at prediabetes, it's not just one factor, right? We call it metabolic syndrome because it's about your waistline, it's about your fasting sugar, it's about your good cholesterol, it's about your triglycerides. We call those the metabolic cholesterol.
It's a big package.
Yeah, it's a big package. It's like a giant pizza, okay? There's 8 slices. Which is worse at one sitting, eating one slice or eating the whole pot? Right? So the more you have, generally 3 or more of these risk factors, you now have prediabetes or metabolic syndrome, and you've tripled your risk to have vascular disease, to have a heart attack, to have a stroke, to have heart disease. You've tripled your risk. And we're talking 30 to 50 million people have prediabetes in the United States, along with the 30 to 50 million that have diabetes. And I think these numbers are now at 50 million now, and climbing still. We haven't figured this out yet.
I think the really encouraging thing is that whether you have 1 or all 5 of these, the equation is the same.
Yeah.
Right? I was thinking of the word, because it's not the equation, but the solution is the same, really. It's following an anti-inflammatory diet. It is moving. I mean, particularly with diabetes. If you just do 10 to 15 minute walk after your meals, you can reduce your blood sugar by 30%. That's a huge amount for just 15 minutes. Put your sneakers on and go for a walk. But, making sure you get enough sleep, make sure you're following stress management, make sure that you are watching the amount of simple carbs in your diet and really eating whole foods and staying away from ultra processed foods. It kind of solves all the problems.
It does.
So it's not that you have to do 5 different things for these 5 different ailments. You really have to just create an anti-inflammatory, whole food, just good lifestyle habits. And once you do that, you're on your road to fixing all 5.
So if you had to summarize for everybody in our Get to Work section, what would you say?
I'd say top number 1 is you have to follow an anti-inflammatory diet.
Okay.
You have to exercise. You have to move.
So in terms of movement, at least 30 minutes, right?
At least.
3 to 4 days a week, minimum. And strength training about 2 to 3 days a week. That's our general recommendation. We did this in our movement show. You talked about protein and fiber.
Protein, I mean, you have to be protein conscious. You have to make sure you're getting 80 to 100 grams of protein a day. That varies a little bit depending on, the size of the individual.
Right.
But it's very, very important.
You talked about the DASH diet in the beginning of this.
Yes.
You talked about sleep, at least 7 to 9 hours. And it's interesting because they recommend it's best to have consistent wake and sleep times.
Yes.
We don't do that. And of course, finally, look, stop smoking, whatever means possible, do that.
And alcohol in moderation.
Yeah. It should be noted about blood pressure. To track your blood pressure, it's best first thing in the morning and right before bed, before medications, before coffee and tea, before breakfast, before running around, showering, thinking about your day. They said 5 days are best. I generally at least try to get 3 for my patients. And of course, the new goals are less than 130 and less than 80. But this is very individualized. Some people need lower and some people maybe a little bit higher. But really, the goal is less than 130 and less than 80.
I think that one of the things that we don't talk enough about is that how did we get here, right? And so we talk about this anti-inflammatory diet. We talk about Mediterranean style eating or the DASH diet or, whole grains and high fiber and all these great things. And they're incredibly important because we keep repeating them over and over again. But how did we get there? And we got here because the standard American diet the acronym is SAD, right? And it is so heavily based on, empty calories, no fiber, no veggies, fast foods, ultra processed foods, sodas, alcohol, refined.
That's how we got here.
And sugar. And I mean, the obesity, the number one contributing factor to obesity is too much added sugar in the diet. So when we're saying all these, very idealistic views of following this diet or this eating pattern, we have to really kind of flip the switch a little bit and talk about what we have to stop doing.
Yeah.
Because I think people know more about that than they do really about how to make it better. Yeah. And so we really need some better education from the ground up and teaching from children up how to eat, like how to follow good eating habits. Because right now I think we're lacking that education across the board.
I would agree. So again, if you're 50, get these risk factors under control, because if you don't, we've proven to you today they could steal years of your life. And if you get them under control, you're adding those years back and you're going to live happier and healthier. So again, today, and as every time at the end of our show, we invite you to like this show, to send it to a friend, at least one person share it so that they can get all this information and so they can pass it on, because that's what we're here for.
So they can add years to their life.
So they can add years to their life. And that's a way to show that you care. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be notified every single time an episode comes out. And as we say at the end of every single show, what you're avoiding today
will cost you tomorrow.
So together, let's get to work.
Hi, I'm Philippa Beddington, registered dietitian and integrative wellness specialist, and I am the creator of Phil Knows Food and the author of Cracking the Food Code.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scott. I've spent 30 years in the cardiac cath lab, and I am sick and tired of seeing preventable diseases not prevented.